I slammed the ticket on the bench so hard the microphone jumped. "You think you can just throw this at me like I'm some nobody?" My voice cracked through the courtroom, sharp enough to make the bailiff flinch. "Do you even know who I am? I'm above the law. I'm above all of this." The gallery went dead silent. Phones that had been secretly recording suddenly lowered. Even the court reporter stopped typing. Judge Frank Caprio, the man famous for compassion, looked up slowly from the paper I'd just assaulted his bench with. For the first time in years of viral videos, his kind eyes weren't smiling. They were tired, heavy. "Ma'am," he said, voice low, "nobody in this room is above the law. Not you. Not me. Not even the president. Sit down." I didn't sit. I couldn't. My pulse was fire. "My name is Lauren Ashford Harrington, 34, senior VP at one of the biggest hedge funds in Manhattan, daughter of Senator William Harrington. And until 30 seconds ago, I had never lost anything in my life. This was supposed to be a nothing ticket. Running a red light in Providence on my way to a private jet. A favor called in, a quiet dismissal, the usual choreography. Instead, some rookie cop refused to look away from my last name. And now here I was in traffic court like a common criminal because I refused to pay the first fine and it snowballed into a failure to appear. I laughed, cold and brittle. "You're seriously going to waste everyone's time over $250? Judge Caprio leaned forward. "Young lady, I've seen people cry in this chair because they can't feed their kids if they pay a $50 fine. $250 is not trivial to most of the planet. And respect is not optional." I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. "Then let them get better jobs?" A collective gasp rippled behind me. Someone whispered, "She did not just say that." The judge removed his glasses. Cleaned them slowly, buying time the way he always does when he's about to drop a bomb no one expects from America's nicest judge. "Miss Harrington," he said, "I'm going to tell you a story I've never told on camera before. And when I'm done, you're going to decide whether you still want to stand there and claim you're above the law." He didn't wait for permission. 42 years ago, almost to the day, I was a young defense attorney. A kid from Federal Hill, first in my family to go to college. I was appointed to represent an 18-year-old named Tommy Russo, speeding, reckless driving. Hit a parked car. Same kind of ticket you're looking at, only back then the fines were smaller and the attitudes were bigger. Tommy came from nothing. His father fixed shoes on a 12th Avenue. Tommy worked nights at the docks to help pay rent. He couldn't afford the fine, couldn't afford insurance, couldn't afford a lawyer who cared. So he got me, 29, wet behind the ears, terrified I'd ruin the kid's life. He stood right where you're standing and told the old Judge Moretti, "Tough as nails, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'll pay it any way I can." But Moretti looked at Tommy's last name, saw the address in the poor part of the city, and decided the boy needed to be taught a lesson. 6 months in the Aishi adult prison because he missed one payment by 3 days. 3 days. Miss Harrington. Tommy went in a scared teenager and came out someone else. By the time I got him released on appeal, he'd been stabbed twice. Addicted to heroin, they sold like candy inside, and his mother had died of shame. He hung himself in a halfway house at 21. I found him. I cut him down myself. The courtroom was a tomb. I felt every pair of eyes burning holes through my designer coat. Judge Caprio's voice dropped to almost a whisper. But the microphone caught every word. I swore that day I would never let poverty or privilege decide who gets crushed in a courtroom again. I became a judge, so no one rich or poor would ever hang because of a traffic ticket on my watch. So when you stand there, daughter of a United States Senator, and tell me you're above the law because money and connections have always cleared your path, you're not just insulting me. You're insulting Tommy Russo, you're insulting every person who has ever had to choose between groceries and a court fine, and you're insulting the oath I took 40 years ago over a dead boy's body. My knees shook. I still hadn't sat down. He slid the ticket back across the bench toward me. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pay the original fine $250 plus court costs, which I'm reducing to the absolute minimum because I'm required by law. Total, $400. You're going to pay it today in person at the clerk's window, and then you're going to do 30 hours of community service at the Rhode Island Community Food Bank. I will know if you send an assistant. I will know if you fake it. And if you refuse any part of this, I will remand you into custody right now for contempt. And your father's phones will not save you before the cameras do. For the first time in my adult life, I had no comeback. No threat, no name to drop. The bailiff stepped forward. Ma'am, have a seat or be seated. I sat. The next case was called. A 78-year-old woman who'd gotten a ticket because her cataracts made her miss a stop sign. Judge Caprio asked about her grandchildren, reduced her fine to 0, and told her to bring them by the courthouse sometime for hot chocolate. The gallery applauded like they always do, but the cameras weren't on her. They were on me. Someone live-streamed the whole thing. By the time I walked out into the freezing Providence afternoon, #AbovTheLaw was trending nationwide, and my face read, humiliated. Furious was everywhere. I paid the $400 in cash because I didn't want my credit card traced. The clerk, a woman who clearly recognized me, said nothing, just handed me the receipt with a look that could curdle milk. 2 days later, I showed up at the food bank in jeans and a ponytail. No makeup, praying no one noticed. They noticed. Phones came out immediately. I spent 8 hours packing boxes of canned goods, next to a 16-year-old kid named Malik, who'd been court-ordered there for shoplifting diapers for his baby sister. He recognized me too. Didn't say a word, just handed me boxes and watched me like he was waiting for the meltdown. It never came. On the third day, an elderly man in line looked at me across the table and said, "You're that girl from the video. Thought you were too good for this?" I opened my mouth to snap back old reflex, and instead I heard myself say, "I was wrong." He studied me for a long time, then nodded once and moved down the line. By the end of the 30 hours, my manicure was destroyed, my back screamed, and I knew the first names of half the regulars who came for food. I knew Maria, who worked 2 jobs and still couldn't keep the lights on. I knew Darnell, who served 20 years in the military and now slept in his car. I knew Judge Caprio had been checking the sign-in sheets every single day. On the last day, I lingered after my shift. The director, a tired but kind woman named Carla, asked if I wanted to stay on as a volunteer. Not for the court, just to stay. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. 3 months later, I was back in that same courtroom, but not as a defendant. I stood at the podium voluntarily. The judge looked up, surprised. "Your Honor," I said, voice steady for the first time in my life. "Lauren Harrington." "I'm here to return this." I placed a cashier's check for $10,000 on the bench. It's an anonymous donation to the court's hardship fund, but I'm not anonymous anymore. I'd like it to go toward fines and community service fees for people who can't afford them. And if it's all right with you, I'd like to keep volunteering at the food bank. Not because you ordered me, because I need to. The gallery was packed again. Same phones. Different reason. Judge Caprio looked at the check, then at me. And for the first time that day, the corners of his eyes crinkled the way the world knows them. "Miss Harrington," he said, "the law isn't here to break people. It's here to remind us we're all connected. Some of us just need a louder reminder than others." He banged the gavel once, softly. "Motion granted." "And Miss Harrington, thank you for proving Tommy Russo didn't die for nothing." I walked out crying, but not from shame this time. The video of that moment got 30 million views in a week. The top comment, pinned by the channel that posted it, simply read, "Sometimes the law doesn't need to punish. Sometimes it just needs to wake us up." And under it, from an account with no profile picture, one reply, "Thank you, Judge Caprio. L.H."